Welcome to Charter California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. Our guest, Paul Cook, member of the United States Congress. And sir, before we speak about the substantive issues, I'd like to take a moment and ask you, and I ask you specifically because you were a Marine, history, political science professor, California Assembly, now in the Congress, about President Kennedy's assassination. We recently memorialized the 50th anniversary of it, and I'd like to ask you what you recall of that day. That moment in time?
Well, believe it or not, I was in college.
Okay.
And it's one of those things, and I think everybody has the same thoughts, that when they heard the news, and you're right, after all these years,
right,
you remember exactly where you were. And as I said, I was going to class, we came into class, and then somebody said the president was shot. And it was like, what?
Did you think the president of what?
No, I think just the, although I did hesitate because, you know, the president of the college, but just the person coming in there, because the person, it was actually a girl, and she was crying.
Oh my! And
at first, you know, the reports coming back, it wasn't that he was dead or anything else. It was just that he had been shot. So the details, and there was a lot of misinformation, if you remember back in those days, coming in.
Well, there were no cell phones, or no 24-hour news cycle, or.
And it's like we were getting ready to start the class, and even the professor. I mean, everything. Forget the class. Everything went to find out what was going on, and then of course we're all glued. Somebody got a radio, and bit by bit it came in there. And it was just disbelief.
And now it's 50 years later, and you are serving in the same body in which he served.
Yeah.
And so...
And, you know, Joe Kennedy, one of the Kennedy relatives, has got his office next door to me.
Oh, you're kidding.
Yeah. And a great congressman. The only problem, he's a Democrat.
Well, that's another story.
But he... Nice guy. We're very, very close, and also I got a problem. Is that he's real young, and he looks like he's
young and good looking, right?
But we get along very well because our offices are right next to one another, and so the staffs kind of blend together, and they get so.
And I understand one of your good friends, Alan Lowenthal. Is either in Mr. Kennedy's old office or near Mr. Kennedy's old office.
I think he's in it. You know, Alan and I were in the state. He was in the Senate. But there's another thing. Alan's got a different agenda. He's a Democrat. I'm a Republican. But from a social standpoint, we get along very well.
You're also the same generation.
And we could talk. And I'm from Connecticut, and he's got that original New York accent. I don't have to hire a translator.
Exactly.
So you can have those things where you have political differences. But, and I think in a lot of instances you don't see that with the other members.
Well, let's talk about political differences, because there does seem to be one area where we are not seeing much political division, and that's on the question of Iran. You're on the Foreign Affairs Committee. I believe Mr. Lowenthal is as well. And recently, Ed Royce, a member from California who's chair of Foreign Affairs, issued a letter to President Obama expressing some serious concerns about the negotiations going on with regard to Iran's nuclear program. You know, on the one hand, it seems like maybe this is a moment in time with Ahmadinejad now gone and a new leader in place. You know, could it be let's seize the day?
Well, I don't think so. You remember a lot of people claim the new leader is this so-called moderate.
Right.
And you got to remember the mullahs and everyone else that control the government in Iran. He's not really a moderate. I mean, this guy is maybe the most moderate of the five candidates who are running, but certainly I don't think you can be fooled like this. Ironically enough, in the Foreign Affairs Committee and the House, you see tremendous bipartisan support for the sanctions against Iran. And the only thing I want to say, most of us get the background, the top secret traffic and everything else. I'm sorry. I don't trust Iran, and I think the one difference that the House has now with the administration, I'm talking Democrats or Republicans, you got to be very, very careful. It's real simple. You want to drop the sanctions or what have you, stop building those centrifuges all over, because you're talking about a country that's going to change the complete balance of power.
Let me ask you, though, what I think Iran is saying is that they want to be able to build, manufacture nuclear energy for the purpose of just that, energy, not for offensive purposes, not for weaponized.
I don't buy that for a second.
That's my question to you.
You know, they're affiliated with Assad.
Right.
They support Hezbollah. You have the tension in a lot of different countries right there. They still have individuals, including I believe it was one of the pastors or
I know what you're speaking of. Yes, a Christian pastor's in jail in Iran.
And it's not whether he's doing well or not; it's whether they're beating him every day or not.
But my question is, how can relations thaw between Iran and your mind, or is it just this is not possible?
To me, it's real simple. I think the sanctions are working, or they wouldn't be talking.
Okay.
The bottom line is, have they stopped the centrifuges? Have they stopped the development right then and there as a good faith offer that, okay, we understand the sensitivity of the United States and Israel, the fact that we're going to have 50 and 100 nukes right next door to them, and we have the capability to destroy every country if we want in the Middle East, as well as working in something with the ultimate target, the United States. So I think they have to show us something, and I think I agree with the Prime Minister of Israel that if they suspend the development of nuclear weapons
completely,
just put it on hold,
even if it's for energy purposes.
Yeah,
that's what you don't buy.
That's what I don't buy.
Fair enough.
I think it's real easy, because you kind of need a good faith effort to do that. And don't forget, this is a country that has said over and over again that they're going to destroy Israel.
Although, has the new leader said that?
The new leader, I beg to differ. The new leader takes his
marching orders.
That's right, from the mullahs, and things have not changed at all.
And what's so ironic about this situation, this scenario, is that we find Israel and Saudi Arabia aligned on the question of Iranian containment.
Absolutely, because with the Saudi Arabians, with the Persians, a lot of it goes back to the fear, 1,000 years ago, 500 years ago, of the Persian state, of the Shiite and the Sunni. That's part of the problem.
I have to ask you, though, especially given, how do I say this, that you've been around for a little while, you must remember the time when
You sure you want me on your program again?
No, but when Iran was quite the ally of the United States. I mean, some people don't remember those days.
Oh, I remember it exactly.
Right, but that's what I'm saying.
But it was, if you remember, they were becoming very secular.
Right.
And the revolution was religious in nature.
Right.
And it switched almost overnight.
But that's what so many younger people don't know, is there was a time when Iran was just a beacon.
It was
in
one
the
of
Middle East.
It's always been one of our allies. But you have to always look at history and geography. And the history there is, you have the difference between the Shiites and the Sunnis.
And you know, Professor Cook.
Well,
you know.
It's nice to be in Congress and be on a committee where you know a little bit about. And if not, I don't mind reading those books. I don't mind reading all these papers. Some of the other stuff to me is terribly boring. This is great stuff.
I'm so glad that you're enjoying your new job. I mean, I think it means
there's parts of it.
Well, but look, every job has blessings and curses. But okay, so in the final analysis, do you think the administration is hearing the bipartisan voice on this issue from Congress?
Well, I think Congress, and particularly the House, has been we had over 400 people, Republicans and Democrats, that came out. Where do you ever get in the House? Everybody says the House of Representatives it can't even, on this issue, they are united. And we want to see something in return from Iran.
We'll have to see.
And every country there will tell you it is the greatest threat. And you ask any of the military leaders, and they'll say Iran.
His name is Paul Cook. When we come back, Josie Gonzales, Supervisor of San Bernardino County. I'm Brad Pomerance. It's Charter California Edition.
In what year did the area currently known as Iran change its designation from Persia? 1935, 1946, 1961, or 1979? Iran was known as Persia until 1935.
It's Charter California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. Our guest, Josie Gonzales. She's a member of the Board of Supervisors in San Bernardino County. She brings with us Trudy Raimundo, who is the Director of Public Health in the county. We'll speak with Trudy in a moment. We start with Supervisor Gonzales. And San Bernardino, it really is a new day. I can feel that the city and the county's turned the corner. And so you have been working on a grand vision.
Absolutely.
For the county. Talk to us about that grand vision.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me, Brad. It's always a pleasure.
Love
and you're
having
absolutely correct. The 24 cities within the San Bernardino County have come together and are part of a new county-wide vision. And we are determined that through this common portal, if you will, that we can very much advance the image, the quality of life, and the investments and development that takes place and needs to take place, especially with this economic turn.
Which is interesting you say, because, you know, the county of San Bernardino, for those that are on the outside, all they think about is the city of San Bernardino. But yet Fontana, Rancho, I mean, these are communities. Needles, thank you. But these are communities that have done well and are continuing to do well. They are magnets.
Yes.
And so the fact that the county's coming together as one unit to really, you know, support each other says a lot.
Huge venture. 22,000 square miles is our size.
Biggest county in the lower 48? Geographically?
In the contiguous United States.
Yeah, there you have it.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you, our county-wide vision is awesome.
Please read it.
And I want to share it with you.
Please.
It says, we the people of San Bernardino County envision a complete county that capitalizes on the diversity of its people, the geography, and its economy to create a broad range of choices for its residents in how they live, work, and play. All encompassing.
How lovely.
And I'll tell you that within this vision, there are 7 elements.
Please.
Education, environment, housing, jobs and economy, public safety, water, and our reason for being here today, wellness, because it is without wellness that we are unable to enjoy any of the other elements of our God-given life. So wellness is at the top. And Trudy, take it away.
Take it away. Exactly.
And thank you for having me here today, and thank you, Supervisor, for that wonderful opening.
So let's talk about wellness, because there's no doubt that in the county, wellness is a critical issue. A variety of climates, a variety of air challenges, water challenges, but so many wonderful resources.
But I think even beyond just the air quality and the environmental challenges, what we're discovering is that wellness permeates everything. And it goes to the idea behind everybody needs to come together as a community to own wellness. We know wellness affects how well one, can achieve educational attainment. We know wellness is going to affect how successful one is in their job. We know wellness is affected by things like the environment and access to health professionals and access to nutritious foods. And that's actually those are the areas that actually came up when we went back to the community.
So let's talk about food, if I may, because it is such an interesting area. And for those that may live in more well-heeled areas, we may not realize that in areas that are more challenged, access to food is not what you'd think it would be. A lot of fast food restaurants, not a lot of fresh produce. So explain that to us.
Well, unfortunately, in the county, we also have this thing, it's called a Retail Food Environment Index. And for the county, we have one of the worst in the state. And it just is, it's
and
a
what does
measure
that mean?
of,
Be specific
it's a measure of how many retail food outlets we actually have in a particular areas compared to grocery stores and other venues where they can get nutritious
of food
Yes.
accessibility, not so much quantity.
Of course.
Yes.
Because it is, if you're even looking at being organic, being healthy,
Right.
if you go to the grocery store, all of the organic tomatoes, zucchinis, whatever vegetables, they're in a little area unto themselves, they're labeled, and they're more expensive. And it seems counterproductive to the well-being that we want to promote when we understand that our mental, our physical, our psychological well-being is all affected in a very chemistry
No
type
doubt.
of
Yes.
a makeup based upon the food we eat. So there is an intrinsic tying into what is the wellness, the mental, the physical, the emotional well-being, and how it affects people in their jobs, students in school learning, and also in the care that the families receive as they prepare for a weekend. Do the kids go out and play? Are they sitting there, tied to some electronic gadget? How do we make this wellness component be a wraparound, all-encompassing, positive element in the countywide vision?
Because if you think about it, without wellness, the other 6 elements really don't matter.
You're absolutely right. Being able to be healthy and active and allows you to stay fit in the first place. When you don't feel well, when your body isn't functioning well, it doesn't matter how much opportunity, opportunity for a job, for an education, to enjoy life. It doesn't matter.
And as I understand it, you are working diligently to include stakeholders in this discussion about wellness.
Absolutely.
Because, well, Trudy, why don't you tell us about that?
Well, and we did, we have an initiative that's going on right now. It's called Community Vital Signs, and it's an initiative that the county spearheaded and really has developed into a huge countywide framework. We're looking at health from a multitude of sectors. And so what we did over the course of the summer, July and August, is we actually went out through 23 different events and talked to well over 1,000 stakeholders. And these are stakeholders from every sector, because we know every sector has to be involved. We know every sector is touched by health in some way. So we had public safety, we had business, we had planning and transportation, we had certainly the education folks there, we had the environmental folks there. All of them came together and came up with some priority areas that they said, these are the areas we need to concentrate on when we're talking about wellness.
And what were they saying? I mean, what did you hear? I have to think that certain wellness categories wwent to the top of the pile.
Yeah. And really the top 2 came out as education and economy,
which are 2 of the other elements.
Well, but it really goes to how interrelated. And I think that's a large part of the vision, is that interconnectedness and that interrelatedness, because we know kids don't learn if they're not healthy. We know that the economy and the kind of job you have or the lack of a job absolutely affects one's individual health. Can I ask you about
the economy? Because, look, San Bernardino County, the Inland Empire, is still suffering with an unemployment crisis. The great news is, I love the Amazon Distribution Center. It is such a crown jewel in the new San Bernardino. What is it, like 2,000 jobs, 2,500 seasonal jobs? This really is a game changer. But, that's an anecdote. To talk to us about the economy. The economy is rallying around.
Right. We're looking, I was in Sacramento last 2 days, I'm sorry, San Jose the last 2 days.
Got it.
For the CSAC conference.
Oh, of course.
And,
which is the county conference,
yes,
California County Conference.
California State Association of Counties. And a lot of the discussion centered around the economy. How are we poised to take advantage? What is, in fact, the rate of the economic improvement? How are we going to deal with that? Can we trust it? Is it such a vascous type of volatile? But here's the question: how do you leverage this dramatic success of Amazon coming in to build more catalytic consequences from it? Well, obviously, Amazon's a big whale.
Right.
There are many smaller fish in the economic ocean that naturally gravitate because they are, in a sense, clustering or ancillary services, supply and demand, and that feed and be able to be fed through that economic vein. The fact is that unless we in San Bernardino County have our footprint ready, healthy, prepared
looks like you
to accept more transitional jobs, jobs that are coming from the outside.
Will you come back and talk more about it?
Absolutely.
Okay, she's Josie Gonzales, she's Trudy Raimondo, I'm Brad Pomerance, just Charter California Edition.
If San Bernardino County were an American state, where would it rank in terms of population size? 28th, 36th, 40th, or 43rd? 36th. San Bernardino County has more residents than 14 of the country's states.
Welcome back. It's Charter California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. Our guest, Martin Johnson, he's a professor at UC Riverside and the author of this book, co-author of this new book called Changing Minds or Changing Channels. It is about partisan news in the age of choice. Fascinating read. I want to speak with you about television, fragmentation, a study that you did, and the results, which may be counterintuitive. Let's talk about television. What have we seen in television over the last, 30 years?
Tremendous change in television.
Oh, yes.
I mean, anyone who, all of your viewers, we're all aware of this, but a lot of scholars are kind of catching up on this.
When I tell my kids that I had to walk to the TV to change the channel, when I tell my kids that all we had was 2, 4, 5, 7, 9, 11, and 13, they can't believe it.
Absolutely.
But we had, 7 choices. Now we have...
Hundreds of choices. I think about the very first cable box I had. When I was, very young, my family got cable. And we had a box that had 3 buttons on the top that expanded vastly the capacity of your television, up to 10 channels or something like that.
On TV Z channels, you remember those?
The thing that was notable about ours was there was actually a key. This was the original V-chip. There was a key that a parent could actually physically lock the box. So this was, this was in the 70s.
So what has that fragmentation done?
Well, so we've seen this massive increase in the number of channels that are available, and it's due both to technology as well as regulatory decisions that Congress has made. Important pieces of legislation like the 1992 Cable Act and 96 Cable Act, and that brought cable service providers together with local broadcasters and really launched a proliferation of channels like FX and ESPN2 and the precursor to MSNBC, which a lot of people forget what was called America's Talking.
I do
in the mid-90s. So this mid-90s period launched us into a massive proliferation of channels and the pursuit of ever specialized niche audiences. So now we have these, and for fans, they're just wonderful resources. You've got, do-it-yourself home improvement. You've got
the Food Network.
The Food Network. You've got, car repair. Whatever your thing is, it's on TV.
And what's so interesting is, if you look at the news landscape, CNN billed itself as just the neutral, nonpartisan network.
But available 24 hours.
24/7. Yeah. Fox came on. They never billed themselves anything other than, I guess they call themselves fair and balanced, but clearly their target has been those that are right of center.
Correct. They bill themselves as fair and balanced, but it's very apparent that they are offering news with a perspective, with a very clear perspective.
And MSNBC, when it launched, I don't think that it was intending to be a left-of-center network.
It wasn't at all. In fact, MSNBC initially had shows hosted by people like Ann Coulter,
Patrick Buchanan,
Tucker Carlson. A lot of people on the right were involved in MSNBC early on. Around 2008, was really the big push toward a more progressive perspective, sort of dominating MSNBC.
So let's back up and talk about what this book discusses, which is, does partisan news, is it as polarizing as the pundits make us think it is? Is it causing the rift in our nation to very blue, very red, or not?
Absolutely. That's sort of a core of the book is thinking about what kind of evidence there is for that sort of pulling apart. There's a kind of polarization that these news options do allow, which is, in a sense, almost like voting. People can pick up the remote control and every night of the week vote, in a sense, for a more conservative perspective or a more liberal perspective. And it's very clear that people are doing that. News audiences are doing that. More conservative people tend to watch Fox News, and more liberal people tend to watch MSNBC.
And the irony of it all is that CNN, which Fox says is liberal, I think most people would say it's fairly neutral, they're the ones that are hurting. They're the ones that are suffering. They try to present a nonpartisan perspective, and they're a third of third by a mile.
Well, and they're out there competing every night with the traditional mainstream broadcast news, which still actually has fairly large audiences compared to some of these more niche partisan audiences.
But your study provides a result that some would say is counterintuitive.
There are a number of interesting findings.
Right.
So one of the things that we do is bring people into, we actually watch them watching television.
Right.
And we bring them into environments on television where we can watch the choices that they make. And critically, a lot of people who study this imagine away entertainment programming. We very much incorporate entertainment programming into our study and think about that as a choice that people routinely make. And this allows us to identify the fact that there are audiences for these entertainment programs that don't necessarily want to watch any news, let alone partisan news. And so, so that's one of the sort of pieces that's missing from a lot of the public dialogue about partisan media and polarization, is that a lot of people just opt out entirely.
I mean, if you look at the ratings for Fox, MSNBC, and CNN on a given night, you add it all up, even all three combined would be a distant fourth or fifth to the broadcast networks.
Absolutely.
Some other cable networks just singly could overtake the three of those news networks combined.
Especially these immensely popular shows like Duck Dynasty.
Right, sure.
And those types of programs draw these very large audiences relative to even stars like Bill O'Reilly.
And broadcast news, hosted by Brian Williams or Scott Pelley, Diane Sawyer, people act as if those broadcasts are afterthoughts, they're dead. Their ratings are quite strong.
They're still very much alive. They're definitely part of the media
compare them to Fox, MSNBC, and CNN.
We get really preoccupied with Fox and MSNBC, and a lot of public intellectuals, even the president, are very concerned about this phenomenon, when in fact those are very small audiences, and that limits the kind of impact those folks can have.
And self-selecting.
Absolutely.
Which is part of what your book discusses.
Right. So there are two things going on that limit the effects of this partisan media. One thing is this, we call it dilution, where not very many people are watching that partisan media.
Six figures, not seven figures. I mean, that's how low these numbers are.
Very, very small audiences. And furthermore, the people that do choose to watch them are very different from other people. They are more politically oriented, they're more politically knowledgeable, they have stronger political opinions. The conservative who picks up the remote control to turn on Fox News is already a pretty conservative person who kind of knows what she or he thinks about politics.
Let me ask you this. I understand your thesis, which is because so few people are watching these partisan newscasts and not many people are going to find them, that there really isn't that polarization as a result of the existence of the partisan newscasts.
Well, not the pulling apart.
Right.
Or less of the pulling apart.
But then let me ask you, but for those that do watch, the left and the right, does it cause them to be further polarized because their newscasts of choice are so hyper-partisan?
Well, this is a subject of open debate and conversation. What we find is that it tends not to. We find that very conservative person who wants to watch Fox News there really isn't much place for them to go. They're pretty conservative.
And they're not becoming
the same thing with the
more
liberal. But again, this is a matter of controversy, and there are scholars out there. Our study's our study, and there are other scholars who take the other perspective that they do in fact deepen those kinds of divides.
I want to ask you this though: why is it that if you look at our nation, and let's just say for argument's sake, it's split 50-50 Democrat-Republican, for argument's sake.
Sure.
That Fox's numbers are so much higher than MSNBC?
It's the kind of thing that we're just forced to admit,
right,
given the compilation of evidence,
right,
that there is a sort of stronger appeal to a kind of partisan media among conservatives than among liberals. That there's more of a kind of, in a sense, choice that liberals seem to take in consuming mainstream news, NPR, okay, a bunch of other different sorts of
His name is Martin Johnson, professor at UC Riverside, co-author of this book, Changing Minds or Changing Channels. I'm Brad Pomerance. It's Charter California Edition.